All right. Hey, welcome everybody to the Chicago Dad Group on Meetup. And tonight we're on Zoom. We are here for a special Dad's Workshop. We have Coach Schaefer with us. And we're going to hear about the multidimensional man. Hopefully have a good conversation. And I can tell you a little bit about Coach Keeg. So Keegan Schaefer has fought a tremendous amount of adversity, which has not only given him a great deal of empathy, but it's also allowed him to navigate all the chaos. He spent his life helping men gain extreme clarity and being the absolute best versions of themselves. And we are very fortunate to have Coach Keeg with us tonight. I met him through it was an introduction from another networking partner, and he's also introduced me to lots of other networking partners, which has been great. So I love it that we're all just about giving and letting those ripple effects, really help us out. So without further ado, Keegan Schaefer.
Jason, thank you so much for having me here tonight. Gentlemen, it's great to see you. Yeah, Jason gave a little bit of a story, but again, this is a dad's group, so I would presume that most of us are dads in here. In fact, it's my one son's first big birthday today, just turned one, so that's exciting stuff. I also have an 11-year-old. His birthday was March 3rd, so both of them have very close birthdays. But yeah, I'm very excited to speak with you gentlemen about this concept today because I think that this is not discussed often publicly, and there are some really cool perspectives and tools. So really what I would love to do is talk about what a one-dimensional man is, help you guys open the mind a little bit and consider being a multi-dimensional man. I'll give you a really simple rubric, some actionable items, how to become that multi-dimensional man. And then I've got some cool free stuff for you guys at the end. So if you want some additional support and help, happy to share my knowledge and resources with you guys. So I'll go ahead and just dive right in here. Always love starting with a quote to get the juices flowing. We are vast, creative, multidimensional beings with enormous potential, deep compassion, incredible courage, and strength. Harold Becker. So I'm curious from anybody in the crowd, how would you define a one-dimensional man? What does that mean to you?
Well,
Someone that's focused on too much area of their life, one area or two.
Yeah, absolutely, Chris. Somebody that's focused on one area of their life. Absolutely. Jason, were you going to say something, brother?
yeah, I was pretty much going to say the same thing. So
Awesome. So, yeah, I mean, an example of this, how often do you meet a gentleman in public somewhere and you go, tell me a little bit about yourself? And what's usually the first thing that somebody says? Their career. Tell you what they do. You know, that is the essence of a one-dimensional man. It's a man that is only defined by what he provides. And no doubt that's an important piece of being a man, but it's not the only piece that makes up a man. And that's where we have a lack of emotional intelligence, a lack of deeper relationships. And so ultimately, we have a great responsibility. Men are the apex predators of the world. And with that, there's the Spider-Man quote, with great power comes great responsibility. And it's so true. So we have this responsibility to our children, our partner, our community, and the world at large. And that's really what I want to share with you gentlemen today. So any questions before I give a little bit of a background? I want to give a short history on why we've become one-dimensional men. Does anybody have any questions before we dive into that piece? Awesome. So I'm going to share the history, the essence of how we got to this place as a society, a country, and a world at large. So many years ago, specifically about 100 plus years ago, we were in more of an agricultural era. And what that meant is that typically there was a husband and a wife that lived together on the home front and they had children. And if they had a little boy, the little boy would go with the father throughout the entire day. He would learn how to solve problems. He would learn how to protect, provide for his family, and really be the rock, the center. If they had a daughter, the daughter would go with the mother and learn all of the same things, how to solve problems, how to be there in the family dynamic. And this was a beautiful dichotomy. No doubt there were a lot of struggles. So the Industrial Revolution came into play and basically said, listen, I know you guys have faced some famine, you've faced some drought, you've had some hard times. So we're going to promise you more money, more resources in exchange for you moving closer into the cities. And the husband is going to be responsible for going into the manufacturing plant or wherever they were working at that time, and basically sacrifice that time away from the family. And so at first, it sounded great, right? They said, okay, cool. My family's going to have to worry less. They're going to have to stress less. I'm going to be able to provide more. Why would I not do that? That's a no-brainer. So you saw hordes of families moving into the cities, working in the factories, the mills, whatever it was, to provide this lifestyle. And the difficulty here is what started happening is the identity of men started to change. So more specifically, what we mean by this is that they were now isolated to just providers. It's what are you bringing home to the family to provide? You're gone all day. I would hope you're going to bring something back into the family. And then this was further exacerbated when you saw all the wars come into play. World War I, II, Korean War, Vietnam, Cold War. I mean, the list goes on and on. And what this did is it further exemplified this identity of the man, not only removed now from the household, but also removed from the country and further placed out of the home. And guess what? When you're a man, if you're in war, you cannot have emotions. Why? Because you cannot kill a man. You can't kill somebody else if you're emotional about it. So they removed the male from the household. They removed them from the country. And then they started to say, if you're a man, suppress your feelings, push them down. You can't share them because you're not a good man in war if you share your emotions. And the ball continues to roll. A lot of different things happened within our country specifically that further pressed that upon men. So then men more and more became isolated and articulated by simply, what do you provide? How much money do you make? What is your career? And that's where we got to this place of being one-dimensional men. Now, I'm sure you guys probably have a lot of really great ideas on the repercussions of this. Does anybody have any thoughts of the downfalls of this story that I just shared with you? Questions, statements. I even take snide remarks. So if you have any of those, would love to hear from you guys on this. What are your thoughts here?
Well, I agree. With war, you cannot have emotion because, well, I, before I was even married, I was, single, bachelor, dating, and I actually broke up with whoever I was with because I didn't want to have to worry about getting a Dear John letter because like, look, I need to focus on staying alive and not what you're doing at home.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you for your truth there. And we have a couple gentlemen in the room today here that have served. So gentlemen, thank you so much for your service. Any other thoughts, feedback, or responses on how we got to this place of being a one-dimensional man, or questions here? Anybody else want to add to this?
Yeah, I think war had a lot to do with it. I mean, it really pushed. And then there was a couple other movements where, it was encouraged for both people in the house to work. So I think that further perpetuated it when
Got to stop me.
when both people were forced to work. I think that perpetuated it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And again, there's contrast with everything, There's good and there's bad. I mean, we take war, and I'm not sitting here saying that war is a bad thing per se, right? There's a lot of good things that come out of war. We have a ton of technological advancements, health advancements. In fact, fun fact for you guys, the simple M&M derived from World War I because they wanted to send chocolate to soldiers without them melting. And that's why we have the common M&Ms today. So there is good and bad that come with everything, right? But again, the sole purpose of me sharing this with you is that we have over time been refined more and more into that one-dimensional man. And Chris, you're so right, because when the men were removed from the country, well, who do you think was working in the factories at that point? A lot of the women were stepping up and taking those jobs because somebody had to bring in the money for the family, right? Any other thoughts or feedback on this before we start to shift gears here, gentlemen?
Well, not to take it to the government level, but in Chicago, I know as well in the Black community, the thing was you had to kick the man out of the house for women to get financial support. And that to this day, when it comes to like public housing and all that type of stuff, that was one of the prerequisites. If the woman wanted to have housing for her and her child, the man could not be in the house.
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you for sharing. Yeah, and again, listen, you know, another derivative of this, when the war era was occurring in the United States, we had a big women's movement, right? And there were basically two splits on the women's movement. One split was that I don't need a man at all. I can make money, I can provide for the family. And the point that you just shared, spot on, right? The other side was women's rights just for the sole purpose of having the rights. And they were very two different ideologies, but you're spot on. Yeah. By the way, I lived right next to Wrigley's Field, so I'm a big fan of Chicago myself. But awesome discussion, guys. Anything else you want to add before we shift into the how to convert this now?
When was it depopularized for men to have emotional spiritual strength? There's been some sort of a curve in death to emotions where, you know, it's not acceptable for boys to be able to express a fear in public, to display an emotion, you know, and now there's this whole you know, let's pull God out of the world thing. So it almost seems like the world, or at least our society here, is like, have a great body and have a good mindset to make money, and if you have time for your family and emotions and connecting and stuff, that's nice. That's an extra.
Absolutely, Chris. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, to answer your question, I can't tell you the exact date, but based on a lot of the research that I've done, this stems from the past 6 generations specifically, right? So what that means is that, you know,
Yeah.
I didn't have really a father figure in my life. It was my grandfather who just passed away this year. But the point is that, well, who taught him to be a man? Well, his father did. And who taught him to be a man? Well, his father did. And who taught him to be a man? His father did. And again, that derives from war. Again, that suppression of emotion. And when we saw that women's movement, and again, I'm not saying that I'm not against women. I'm not anti-women. But when we saw that woman's movement, more and more emotion started to come into the picture. And there's a lot of different reasons for this, but to your point about society pushing it in a particular direction, I believe that's why we see a lot of this. Well, you're going to get a trophy just for showing up. Did you know that there are several
agree.
schools in the country now that don't even do grades anymore? They don't even require you to be able to read to be in school. I mean, there's major repercussions to that stuff, right? It's not just about, oh, I don't want to hurt your feelings. Well, who cares? If your feelings are hurt, what actually happens, right? You face it, you deal with it, and you move on. But it's when we act like it's not even there, and we say, oh, that makes me uncomfortable, so I'm not going to face it. That's where we're seeing more and more weak men all over the place, right? And so the big thing is, well, if that's the one-dimensional man, and that does not serve the greater good, it doesn't serve our family, it doesn't serve everybody around us, the cure is to become a multidimensional man. And when we are a multidimensional man, again, everybody on this call, presumably, is a father. I mean, what greater thing can you ever give to your child than the highest standard belief system and expectation of self, right? If you pave the way for your kids, male or female, you pave the way for your kids, you give them the opportunity to be great. And as a parent on this call, you know in your heart that we all want our kids to have a better future than we did. That's the essence of what we do, right? So in order to get to that place, I'm sharing with you, gentlemen, that we have to become that multidimensional man. And so I put this together for you guys, and I'm gonna share this in the chat really quickly, so everybody has it. So that's in the chat there now. If you guys don't get it, let Jason know, and I'll make sure that he gets it out to everybody. So how do we become a multidimensional man? I've got 5 rubrics here for you, gentlemen, today. Okay, and what you can do, and this is something that you guys can do within the Dads Network in Chicago, the Dads Group, is on a daily or weekly basis, you can simply do a check-in. Hey, Jason, how did you do today on your score? Did you hit a 5? Hey, Jeremy, I saw that you got a 4 there, man. What can we do to get you to a 5 tomorrow? How can I support you? And when we have this community of brothers supporting each other, that's where we get to the next level. And it's our responsibility, right? So you would give yourself a point for each of the following categories. Now, this is on a daily basis. This isn't once a week. It's not once a month. It's not just one time at the end of the year when you're doing your reflection and goal setting for the next year. This is every day, okay? So there's body, mindset, your heart, which is like your relationships. You talked about the emotional intelligence, your spirit, and then ultimately your purpose, okay? So I'm going to break these down and just give a really quick synopsis. There's basically 3 parts to each of these. I got you guys a quote. I got you a little bit more detail about what that means, and then actual exercises that you can do to contribute to this. And by the way, if you get these concepts and you go, man, that's awesome, I'd love a lot more information, I do have a book out there. I know that this cover looks a little bit feminine. I was just sharing with Jason, I just rebranded this, so we do have a new cover out on Amazon right now, but it's not fully uploaded. So you can get this on Amazon, and it goes through all of these pillars, as I call them, to make you the multidimensional man. All right, so a perfect score in one day would be 5. 1 point for each category. We good so far? Awesome. So body, I love this quote. I'm big on quotes. A strong body houses a strong mind. Arnold Schwarzenegger. And this is in a very chronological order. You are going to want to start in this specific order. There's a ton of science behind this. I cannot take credit for coming up with this. I'm just sharing the information with you men. The point is, you start with your body. There's 4 components to the body that, again, just in this particular exercise, we're focusing on: water intake, your sleep, your exercise, and your diet. Those are the 4 components that we are attributing to the body. So an exercise here, again, and this is just, I'm sharing this with everybody, and more details in the book if you want it. Learn your body type: ectomorph, mesomorph, endomorph. Okay, this is like the infancy stage stuff to getting the best results. Now, I'm going to tell you guys now, if you've got some deeply rooted stuff and your nervous system is not in check, you can work, but you're not going to get the best results. So you do need to be able to focus on your nervous system, and that's going to play into the other categories. We'll get into that. Learn your body type, make an exercise and a diet plan, right? Learn your circadian rhythm. I've got a really cool exercise on this. If you guys want it, happy to share it with you today. And then drink enough water. You know, most people, I've got a buddy of mine that's like, yeah, man, I drank 60 ounces of water today. I'm way over my limit. I'm like, no, that's way under your limit. You should be drinking a lot more than 60 ounces a day. And a good rule of thumb, if you're just going to get started, yeah, let's go. A good rule of thumb, if you're just getting started on this, when you wake up, drink a glass of water. After you eat your meal, not during or before, but after you eat your meal, drink a glass of water. And then before you go to bed. That's 5 right there that you can get every single day. and then you just trickle some in between there, right? So any questions on the body, any feedback, any different perspectives, or anything that can help any of the men on this call today before I go to the next category, gentlemen? Jason.
Yeah, I've got not a question, just adding on an illustration of what you're talking about. My wife and I got some new phones a handful of years ago, and they had a little sensor on the back that you can touch it, and it would tell you what your stress level is. And it was a continuum from solid green to solid red, right? And I said, hey, actually, her phone was a little bit newer than mine, and I know mine didn't have it, but I'd seen commercials. So I said, I think your phone has a stress tester thing on there. She's like, really? Yeah. I said, here, check it out. And I showed it to her. And then she went ahead and did it. And she's in the corporate world, high level, stressful job. And she, it was like orangish red, so not quite 100% red, but it was up there. And she's like, oh, well, that's, probably not good. And then she said, here, you do it. And I grabbed her phone and did it. Because she said, I bet everybody's, everybody in our society is pretty much probably at that end. So here, you try it. And I tried it. It was like way in the green. She was like, what? That's impossible. And what I do, yes, I try to drink water every day, lots of water. Sleep, I'm not good at. I don't get enough sleep. I'm a night owl, so that adversely affects me. Exercise and diet are, okay. But one thing I do is I do Qigong. Not every day, but I try to. And I said to her, I'm like, I bet anybody who does Qigong on a regular basis is probably like way in the green. So these things are really important too. But just some food for thought. If you do any kind of Qigong, Tai Chi, stuff like that, that can probably help a lot too.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that, brother. And I'll share another fun fact on the concept of Qi. It's been, Qi derives from the Chinese culture. This has been around for almost 6,000 years, very, very long time. The best Qi that you can find is actually in the mountains. And this is coming directly from the Chinese culture. I'm not coming up with this stuff. So if you're looking to really reset and recenter, go get out in nature, specifically a mountain if they're near you. But thank you for sharing that, Jason. That's awesome, man. Cool. And somebody might even have that test on your phone, so check it out if you do. Any other thoughts, feedback, or comments on the body before we go to the next part?
Consistency is king.
Consistency is king. We just had David Goggins in our men's group a couple weeks ago, and I always love his theory on this. Somebody said, if you are working out very rigorously, when do you rest? And usually when people are asking that question, they haven't even really started to work out, right? I've got a buddy, he works out like twice a week. And he's like, yeah, man, but I need all these rest days. I'm like, rest for what? You worked out twice. You're not going to get the results if you're only working out 1 or 2 times a week. I'm not saying you got to do it every single day, 7 days a week. Your body does need rest, no doubt. But you got to put the work in before you do the rest, right? Any other thoughts, gentlemen? Awesome. Let's shift to the mindset. I love this quote. This is one of my favorites. Bishop T.D. Jakes. There is nothing as powerful as a changed mind. You can change your hair, your clothing, your address, your spouse, your friends, but if you don't change your mind, the same experience will perpetuate itself over and over again because everything outwardly changed, but nothing inwardly changed. And I'm guilty of this. I used to think geographic relocation was going to solve all my problems. Well, if I move here, it's going to be different. And it never changed because it was always inside, right? So a couple areas where you can focus to really get that mindset on point, be that multidimensional man, is going to include personal development, whatever that means for you. That could be a TED Talk. That could be, reading a book, whatever that is for you. Journaling, and absolutely personal time on the foundation of a sound body. So again, these are like a pyramid. They stack on top of each other to build the big picture. So a couple good exercises: read, Positive audio. I'll give you a fun fact on audio. This is coming directly from Jim Rohn. If you have a 30-minute commute every single day, and instead of listening to music, and I know this is tough, I did this myself. Instead of listening to music, you change this into personal development. You can get the equivalent of a college education in 1 year. And it's absolutely beautiful, isn't it? You got a 30-minute commute. You can listen to anybody, any intellect out there, and become that much more advanced. I love that. Journaling, time spent on a hobby. And I'll share this with you. This is coming directly from the Harvard Business Review, but they did a study on the top elite performers. We're talking the CEOs in the world. We're talking Olympic athletes of the world, gold medalists, like the top of the top. And they found one thing in common with all of these individuals. All of these individuals had a sound hobby, something that they could put their time and energy into that wasn't so pressurized. It helped them to relieve their mind, but it still gave them direction and purpose on something. So again, if you're looking to shift your mindset, these are some examples or exercises, but do you guys have any other questions, thoughts, or feedback on this?
Yeah, I'll just say real quick, powerful stuff. This is really good. And, being a business coach, I help people with their vision, their strategy, upgrading their skills, optimizing their environment, and mastering their mindset. And if you don't do that last one, forget all of it. None of the other stuff matters. So this is really, really good. Thank you.
Absolutely, Jason. Thank you for sharing that, man. Yeah, I mean, listen, if you don't have the right mindset, I mean, you're going to crumble. I had a conversation with a gentleman the other day. He said, man, if I just had the money, if I just had $1 million in the bank, I'd be good. I said, okay, well, tell me a little bit about your habits. Tell me about your morning and your night routine. And I could tell there was a huge area for opportunity there. He didn't have any structure. He didn't have anything to work on, nothing at all. And I said, listen, I could hand you $1 million today, right now. I guarantee you before the year was over, you'd be back in the exact same place. It's not about the money. It's the habits and the person that you are, right? And that comes to mindset. I do a lot of work with veterans that have experienced PTSD. I do a tremendous amount of charity work here. And upon this research, I've done this for about 2.5 years now. Upon a lot of the research here, I have a pair of brothers that I'll never forget. These two brothers were in the same squadron. They had a ton of very similar experiences. They entered at the same time. They left at the same time. I mean, they were biological brothers, right? And so basically when they both got out, both of them had PTSD, okay? And we started doing a lot of this work together. And the one gentleman was very pessimistic. He was terrified to go out into public. This is a true story. He said, I don't even want to go into public because I'm afraid that snipers are on the rooftops waiting for me. He was terrified. The other brother had PTG, and I'm astonished that we don't talk about this enough. Everybody knows what PTSD is, but who here can tell me what PTG is? It's post-traumatic growth. And 90% of men who experience PTSD, 90%, that's 9 out of every 10, can convert this into PTG. And you know how they do it? Optimism. In one word, optimism. And that's all about mindset and what Jason just shared, right? So it's not that it's all butterflies and rainbows. From quantum physics perspective, 95% of the world is dark matter, but there's 5% of light. So you just got to focus on the light, the good, right? Any other thoughts or feedback before we go into the next category here? Awesome, guys. Awesome stuff. So the third piece, and we're halfway through here, the heart. This would be like your relationships, right? And that may include your children, your significant other, your coworkers, your friends, your family. These are all part of the relationship, the heart. I love this quote. Gary Chapman, if you haven't read the 5 love languages, highly encourage you to do so, specifically with your partner. For love, we will climb mountains, cross seas, traverse desert sands, and endure untold hardships. Without love, mountains become unclimbable, seas uncrossable, deserts unbearable, and hardships our lot in life. So again, these would include your friend, your family, your loved ones, your community, your coworkers, all of these people. And again, not trying to plug it. I'm happy to just send the e-version to you guys. But there is a ton of good nuggets on the heart section in here. Exercises like boundaries, overcoming, internal obstacles, all kinds of deeper stuff. But the three focus areas as fathers on this call: focus on your word, create a plan, and put actions behind it. We've all been there. We've all been there. We have a commitment we make to our son or daughter. Something comes up, we forget about it, or we get too busy, and we forget to honor what we said. That's our word. So if you give your word, you got to protect that at all costs. That's gold, right? If you say you're going to do something for your child, you have to do it. Well, how am I going to do it? I'm super busy. I've got all these things going on. Listen, I get it. You create a plan. You put your word behind something, you create a plan to make it happen, and you take action to get there. There have literally been moments where my son was 12 hours away from me, and I wanted to spend time with him, and I literally drove 12 hours one way just to spend an hour with him, right? That's a whole entire day commitment. And no, that's not an easy thing to do, but I gave him my word, and I have to honor that. Any thoughts, feedback, or questions on this one, gentlemen? Any obstacles that you guys face on this one that you want to talk through really quickly?
I was just gonna say real quick, again, just agreeing with everything you say. Time is just such a huge hurdle. And luckily, it's not that big of a struggle for me, personally, but I know it's something I help my clients with all the time. And, I think that's just, so I was just gonna throw out there, I think time for most people is, huge. And then, right, yeah, sticking to your word is really good. It's all about integrity for yourself and for others, respect for others. So something I think many of us just keep needing to work on, even though a lot of us know to do it, and I mean I do it too. And there's still times when it's just easy to blow it off. It's easy to blow things off, and a good reminder for all of us. So thank you again.
Of course, man.
Yeah.
I'll share this perspective with you, men. How many of us on this call idolize money? Probably all of us, right? Yet, we don't worship our time. They print money every single day, but there's not an entity on earth that can print money. Print time, right? So we're sitting here, again, the one-dimensional man would worship money. The multi-dimensional man worships the time. And we all have the same time. We all have 24 hours in a day, right? Arnold Schwarzenegger said, you sleep for 6 hours, you have 18 hours to commit to the day. And somebody raised their hand and they go, 6 hours? That's not enough sleep. And he said, just sleep a little faster. The point is that most often we do not intentionally carve out or plan time, or when we do put it in our calendar, we don't show up. We don't follow on the commitment, right? So one of those really good triggers that will help you along this journey is putting it in your planner. Put it in your planner, put it in your phone, put it where you need to, so that that time is intentional and planned and strategized.
Yeah,
Great
so I think
points,
this
Jason.
one, yeah, this one also combines with the mindset part, because whether it's 5 minutes that you plan with a kid, or if it's 6 hours, is setting aside that time and not doing shit with your job, with anything else, just fully being intentional in the moment with the kid. So when you went there for an hour, you were probably like, I'm gonna get a full hour, nothing's gonna interrupt me, and it was like amazing quality time. And your Gary Chapman talks about the quality time part. But I love that you recommended that book, and Heart is definitely just takes you deeper.
Awesome points, Chris. Yeah, thank you, brother. Yeah, and again, man, that's why these stack. So if you're saying, hey, I'm a father, I'm super busy, but I'm lost, man. I don't know where to turn. Start with your body. Because you can accumulate small wins repeated over time. And when you start to gain those small wins, it's easier to commit to the mind. Okay, now you've committed to the mind and body. It's going to be a hell of a lot easier to commit to relationships because you're more confident. You're showing up as a better version of you as a man, right? And I love that you brought up the no distractions. Also, with Gary Chapman and the 5 love languages, have you ever stopped to ask your child what their love languages are? Now, of course, this is going to depend on their age. They may not understand some of this stuff. I get that. But we can put it in an elementary context so that they can understand it, right? We can ask the right questions. But how often do we show up thinking somebody receives love in a particular way? Maybe we think it's quality time, but it's actually words of affirmation, and that's a huge indicator. So absolutely. Anything else before we shift into the 4th topic here? Awesome, guys. You guys are killing it. Spirit. Oh, I didn't. No, I didn't. Okay, cool. This one's Buddha. This is for you, Chris. Just as a candle cannot burn without fire, men cannot live without a spiritual life. The spirit includes prayer, meditation, community, and facing death. Some exercises here would be prayer, attend worship or church, meditate, join a community, and focus, study, or inherit a philosophy. I think that spirituality gets misconstrued a lot. And the atheist would say, well, I don't buy into spirituality because it's not quantifiable. There's no scientific data to prove it, right? And the firm believer would say to you, well, this is the truth and the only truth. And if you don't believe it, I might not honor what you believe, right? I'm not saying everybody's like this, by the way, just an example. So spirituality really falls somewhere in the middle. It's all of those things. It's that centeredness. It's that presence. It's understanding and facing death and what that means to you. Spirituality isn't something that I can tell you what to do. I can give you actionable items, but that's up to you. You probably heard this quote when you're younger. Well, an individual has to figure out what love and religion are. That's up to the individual. We can't do that for them, right? Any other thoughts or feedback on this one?
Of course, I love the Buddha quote, but I view the spirit as when you balance the first 3, the body, the mind, and the heart, you're able to get a grasp, which is really your thought process, your emotional processing, and then your physical body. When you get those 3, you actually just naturally get interested in the spirit. And the spirit, we could just say, is anything that's not me, maybe greater than me. We'll call it many things. So that's where I found is when you really start understanding the spirit. And for me, that didn't happen until I was 40. I had an understanding and grasp of religion, things I had to do. But that's where spirit is for me.
Yeah, great points here, Chris. And again, there is science behind this process. That's why we start with the body and then the mind and then the relationships and then the spirit. When you go in that order, to Chris's point, well, listen, if you're a man and you have a sound body and a sound mind, you're going to show up way better in your relationships. So if you have a sound body, a sound mind, and you're showing up better in your relationships, well, your spiritual essence, aura, whatever you want to call it, is going to be a lot more acclimated and in tune. And there are a lot of really beautiful philosophies out there. Why do people adhere to religions? Well, because it gives them the answer. It allows them to face death. It gives them something very particular and concise to believe in. but there are hundreds of gods out there. How do you know which one's the right one? Well, I can't tell you that. That's up to you to determine and figure out, right? But the big piece here is that when we look at all of the great philosophers that have been around for years, the biggest fear that all humans have in connection that none of us can escape is the fear of death. In fact, that is articulated as the epitome, the top of all fears. It's stated, Napoleon Hill stated, that all other fears stem from the fear of death. So that's where this piece plays into it, right? Any other points before we get into our fifth point here today, guys? Awesome. The purpose. So, I got a quote for you. The meaning of life is to find your gift. The purpose of life is to give it away. Pablo Picasso. So really what I'm defining purpose as is how you serve others through your lifestyle. It may include income, your passions, your mission, right? So a good exercise, and these are just a couple questions. Now, of course, just simply these questions alone are not going to solve the big question of what your purpose is. It's going to take a lot more digging into it, but these are really good starting points, right? So how do you identify yourself as a man? Who are you? What are you doing here? Where are you going? Now, when you do this, exclude your name, exclude your background, your education, and your geographic location, right? Because again, we started with this, right? Most men define themselves by what they do, but that's only one piece of the puzzle. That doesn't define you as a man, right? You could say, I know an accountant. Oh, that's awesome. I know 10 accountants. I guarantee you all 11 of those men, if they were in a room, they'd all be very different individuals. Just being an accountant doesn't define who they are. It doesn't define the virtues and the values that comprise that individual, right? So any other thoughts, feedback, or questions on this purpose in particular? Awesome, guys. Let me share a story with you in closing on purpose. All right, I love this one. In 1671, there was a cathedral that was demolished. And there are 3 bricklayers that go to rebuild the cathedral. And there's a gentleman that wants to interview them and ask what they're doing. And the first guy that he goes to speak to, is crouched down on his knees. And the interviewer says, "What are you doing?" He says, "I am working to put food on the table." And he looks at the second guy, and the second guy is kind of, kneeling down, but a little bit higher up. He says, "What are you doing?" And he said, "I am making a wall so I can make money." And then he goes to the third individual, and this guy's the leader of the group. And he goes, "What are you doing?" He says, "I am building a cathedral for people to worship God." You see, all 3 of them were doing the same exact task, but the third individual had a higher purpose. So ultimately, what I want to share with you in this message is that we start by having a sound body. We work on our body. We inspire our children and those around us to do better. We work on our mind. We gain that intellect. We advance. We focus on the heart, the emotional intelligence. We're there to nurture and listen and support, not suppress emotions, but look at both polarities, the worst and the best outcome, to give us a centered approach. And then we tackle the spirit. We understand the bigger picture because we've now understood everything internally. And that spirit is allowing us to now understand externally. So we understand ourselves internally, we understand it externally. Now the purpose, the ultimate step here is literally giving this gift to the world. How can you serve other people with your lifestyle, your gift, your passions, and your mission? And when you can do all 5 of these steps, when you can contribute to these 5 pieces, you will be a multidimensional man. So gentlemen, thank you so much again. there's a score here. If you go Monday through Friday, you give 1 point to each of these 5 categories. You should have 25 points between Monday and Friday. I'm not holding you accountable Saturday, Sunday. That's up to you. But Monday through Friday, you should be getting 25 points. Now, listen, we're not perfect. You might fall off. You might miss a point here, or you might even miss 5 points one week. Shoot, you might even miss the whole week. Hopefully that doesn't happen. But you get back on the horse. And that's why I believe the Chicago Dads group is so powerful, because now you guys all have this information and you can hold each other accountable to contributing to your point system. Any other questions, thoughts, or feedback on this, gentlemen?
Just again, thank you so much. This is awesome. I think this is just really, really good. It's really helpful. You know, everything you shared, all the nuggets, explanations, really valuable, and something that we, all can implement every day. So thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity, Jason.
Yeah.
Thank you both.
Thank you, Chris, for being here.
I always love your all's perspectives. That's why I follow you.
Thanks. And Dan and Drew and Suhong.
Yeah, guys.
Hey, yeah.
Thanks all.
I'm just driving. That's why I'm just listening.
Hey, no worries.
I appreciate it, man. Glad to be
There
here.
you go.
Oh, it's Drew Mende. Is that you, brother?
Yes, sir. Sure is.
I heard the voice. I knew it. I heard the voice. Awesome to see you, man. So yeah, guys, I know a couple of you are already in the group, but I wanted to send an extension, no cost, nothing like that, just inviting you guys to come check out our men's group. If you like this conversation today, we take this more on the philosophical route, specifically Stoicism, but here are some of the groups. So you're welcome to check those out. And if you like this stuff and you want to dive more into exercises and concepts, as I mentioned, here's the book right here. You can get it on Amazon, or I'm happy to just send you any stuff. If you want to reach out directly, I'm happy to just share this stuff with you guys. So this is in the chat. If you want any more information, feel free to reach out to Jason or myself. And if anybody else needs this, I'm happy to send it again. But that's what I got for you guys today.
So awesome. Yeah. And also, if you can, wait, was that stuff in the document that we downloaded from you? Yeah, it is, right? Yeah. So I can also send this out to everybody who RSVP'd tonight.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Very cool.
Awesome stuff, guys. Well, listen, I really appreciate you putting this together, Jason. I appreciate your men, all the men on this call, for your time. I know it's later in the evening today, so you could have been doing something else. I thank you for your time here tonight. And as always, if you guys need anything else, feel free to reach out.
Yeah. Thank you so much. And thanks everybody for coming. This was really valuable and really enjoyed it. So happy to be here and be a part of it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, gentlemen. I'll see you soon.
See you later.
Bye.